Q. It's about time you showed up.
Hey, it's Alex from Android Central, and as you might have guessed, it's time to take an exclusive first look at Android Q. We've got our hands on a very early build of the next version of Android for 2019 here on the Pixel 3, and while we're a long way from the final release, there are quite a few new features and additions that are worth talking about. First, a quick disclaimer though, we're running a very early AOSP build of Android Q here on the Pixel 3. It's pure open source Android without any of the Google stuff on top, no Google font, and only a very basic loadout of apps. So that's why the build we've acquired here looks quite a bit different to a Pixel 3 running Android Pie. Also, since this build is from January, it's probable we'll see further changes once the Android Q preview program kicks off, likely in mid-March. So with those caveats out the way, let's talk Q. Take a second to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll jump in. In this build, the core system UI hasn't changed all that much from Android Pie. In fact, it's so early on that even the Easter egg animation hasn't yet been updated from Android P. If you were hoping for some drastic changes to, say, Android's gesture navigation system, then we're not quite there yet. Any straight-up UI changes are more likely to appear once the Android beta program is underway later in the year. Probably the biggest functional change in Android Q so far is the complete overhaul to Android's permission system. Before, once you granted a permission to an app to do something, it could pretty much just run wild. By contrast, Android Q works to keep you informed along the way and lets you track when and where apps are using permissions once you grant them. There's now a permissions menu to keep track of this stuff, which lives in the all-new privacy section of the settings app, and you can drill down to a surprising level of detail. There's a whole lot to dig into here and a lot of information available either on a per app or per permission basis. It's a little like digital well-being on Android Pie, only for your permissions. This should make it a lot harder for badly coded or malicious apps to do things that you don't want them to. What's more, there's a redesigned permissions dialog that lets you grant one-time access to certain permissions, giving you much more control over what apps are doing. On Android Pie and earlier, once you granted a permission, the app could just use it forever unless you drill down to the settings to manually revoke it. The status bar is also more informative when it comes to background permission access. As you can see here, you get the name of the app that's using the permission in the background, and you can tap to see more detail along with a shortcut to that new permission manager menu. Dark mode has been thoroughly expanded in Android Q, and now in addition to the system UI, the system level dark mode switch can influence other apps. In the current build, there's a toggle in developer options to force dark mode in all apps, which sort of works right now on an app-to-app basis. It's a little bit broken, but it's clear Google is serious about making dark mode a thing in Android Q, and I bet there'll be an API for apps to do just that once Q is finalized. The accessibility menu has also gotten a bit of an overhaul in Android Q with this placeholder section that lets you control the length of time that heads-up notifications and snack bar messages appear on your screen. Next is something that we can't fully show off yet, but something which could be a major new feature in Android Q once it launches. The developer options menu references a desktop mode, and it's not hard to imagine how this could be something like a Samsung DeX style experience, where you plug your phone into a cable or dock to power a large display with a keyboard and mouse. Obviously, having something like this supported at an OS level is huge, but it's likely not all phones running Android Q will be supported because of the performance requirements. It's also interesting in the context of foldable phones. In this new half phone, half tablet device category, we'll see the return of Android on big screens, and chances are whatever UI is built for an opened out Android foldable will look an awful lot like a full screen desktop experience. Finally, it's worth getting into a few smaller features dug up by XDA developers which has had access to the same build we have here. XDA has found evidence that system-level face unlock support will be coming to Android Q, along with the possibility of OxygenOS style customizations for accent colors and fonts. And in a really important security change, apps will no longer be able to read your clipboard in the background by default. We're only scratching the surface of Android Q here. The stable build, which probably will land in August, will almost certainly look different to this super early barebones alpha build. Nevertheless, this is kind of a tantalizing teaser of what to expect from the next generation of Android as well as Google's upcoming Pixel 4. So stick with us and subscribe so you don't miss an extremely busy Android launch season coming over the next month. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.